Well, we are under 2 weeks from the Indianapolis Colts training camp kicking off here. And in this episode, I wanted to talk about some position groups slash players that I believe have to have strong camps this year for various reasons. So without further ado, let's get into it. What is going on, Colts Nation? And welcome back to another edition of Sleeper Colts. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Obviously, shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring this episode and all episodes of Sleeper Colts. Really do appreciate everybody. Hope you all are doing fantastic, staying cool, staying hydrated, and you're excited for Colts camp here. Like I said at the top of the video, under 2 weeks away from Colts camp, which is obviously super exciting in itself there. But yeah, guys, before we kind of dive into training camp battles and things next week, I wanted to talk about kind of this idea of some different position groups that I think for various reasons need to have strong camps, whether it's the idea of adding an outside player potentially if these position groups don't have strong camps, or just the idea of you need some of these new players to come in and play well for you to have success. So with that being said, guys, I would have a couple position groups on both sides of the ball. I have 3 on the offense, 2 on the defense, a little bit of a different one because originally I was going to kind of do individual players, but as I was kind of thinking about it, brainstorming it, I was like, in multiple of these different position groups, I could talk about multiple players. And so I was just going to talk about multiple players here as opposed to just one player in particular. Now, I definitely could probably talk about one player, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to talk about multiple players here. And to start this off, I'm going to talk about all the running backs outside of Jonathan Taylor right now. There's a lot of question marks about who is the next man up right now behind him. And the 2 main players in this competition are going to be DJ Giddens, a 5th-round pick in 2025. Didn't really see the field a whole lot his rookie season. What does it hold for him in year 2? And then 7th-round pick Seth McGowan out of Kentucky, who definitely was productive in his time with the Wildcats and just in college in general, but a little bit older of a prospect. And also there was some legal trouble a couple of years ago, which I think both kind of caused him to slide a lot further than I think the talent and the production would speak to. So who does kind of take that second running back position here? And if both these guys do, can they take some carries off the load of Jonathan Taylor? We've already heard the Colts come out and say, we need to figure out a way to take 5 to 10 carries a game off of JT to help him in the long term, staying healthier, staying fresher. I definitely have always been a proponent of that. I definitely think that's a wise idea. Not that you're cutting exponentially into Jonathan Taylor's carries, but in order, 5 carries, 10 carries here or there per game, that's going to add up, and that's only going to help JT in this offense in the long term. So when looking at both these backs, both guys that have some upside that you feel like, okay, possibly they could both contribute in some way, but realistically, what's it going to look like for both these players, right? What are both these guys going to do doing during camp? How are these guys going to stand out? And if they don't stand out, if neither guy really proves that they can be capable of handling those carries in a regular season game, do we see the Colts go out and try to sign some sort of veteran back? I do think that's still in the cards here if these running backs don't really emerge and don't really show you a whole lot here. These 2 guys that really haven't seen the NFL field a whole lot. So that's one thing I'm really curious about is how does that shake out behind JT? We know JT is going to get fed. He's going to get his. But outside of him, what does it really hold? I'm very curious about that. Now, moving on to another position group that kind of similar to running back, we know kind of the top dogs there, but outside of that, we kind of have some question marks. That, of course, being the wide receiver position. I mean, we know Alec Pierce, he got paid, right? He got paid all that money. He's going to be the clear-cut number one guy in that wide receiver room, right? He's going to, for the first time in his NFL career, be the guy. Not just one of the guys. He's going to be the guy that the Colts are targeting early and often. He's going to be getting a ton more targets than he's gotten in years past, and you're hoping to see that production continue to increase with the target share. That's very much going to increase this year. And then, of course, Josh Downs, the other wide receiver in a contract year, coming off kind of a down year statistically for him. But now with Michael Pittman Jr. no longer on the roster, you think just like Alec Pierce, Josh Downs is going to get more targets. He's going to get more opportunities. And I'm very curious if the Colts try to use him a little bit more down the field and outside as a wide receiver, as opposed to just primarily in the slot last year for a lot of ways. Because we've seen him be more than capable of playing the outside and going down the field and making catches. So I'm very curious how the Indianapolis Colts utilize those two guys. But there's no question those are going to be the top two wide receiver targets. I mean, we know that for a fact. But outside of them, the other wide receiver position, that third wide receiver position, or if you say, hey, Josh Downs is a slot guy, that number two outside guy, that's kind of up in the air right now. I think there's multiple guys that are going to be vying for that position. We've obviously heard a lot about the Colts potentially having interest in an outside free agent, a Keenan Allen, or, a Deebo Samuel potentially, kind of keeping an eye on that position group outside of the top two. But right now, without signing anybody, there's two guys that I really kind of have an eye on that are going to be competing right away for that position group. The first guy is Ashton Dulin, who's been on this roster for a long time. He's gotten opportunities in the past, but never on a full-time basis. He's kind of been a special teams guy that's filled in when you've needed him to, right? And he's shown his ability as a wide receiver, to be fair. Back in, I think, 2021 especially, he got more of an extended role at times, and he definitely showed that he is capable of playing wide receiver. So is he a guy that potentially gets more of a look here? But of course, if he does, then that does impact your special teams and what he's best at. So that's also something to consider. But the other guy that is definitely worth considering as well is the new addition, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, who has had some nice moments in his NFL career. Last year didn't really see the field a whole lot with the Miami Dolphins, but he's had some opportunities with the Tennessee Titans where he's shown to be a solid wide receiver. So is he a guy that potentially slots in to that third wide receiver role, gets another guy on the outside to complement Pierce there? Is he a player that kind of beats everybody else out? Or do either of these guys make the Colts feel comfortable enough to roll with that position group? Or do they decide to go and sign an outside free agent? I definitely wouldn't rule that out either. So, yeah, I'm really intrigued kind of how everything shakes out behind the top two wide receivers, not just with that wide receiver 3 position, but also the round out the rest of the roster. You still have players like Anthony Gould, who provides a lot on special teams in the return department. Of course, you drafted Deion Burks, who has some elite speed and some very interesting attributes that you think can really help you out as a team. So where does he factor in? There's just a ton of questions there outside of the top two guys. So I'm really curious to see who does step up, and they have to both, whoever it is, they have to have some strong camps in order to prove to the Colts that they don't need to go and sign somebody else. They have it in their building. So whoever that is, they both need to have strong camps, Dulin and Westbrook-Ikhine, but somebody's got to prove to the Colts that they can be more than capable of being that player. So that's another position group I'm very intrigued about for sure. Now, the final position that I have here on this Colts offense to me is really that right side of that offensive line, right? Not that I necessarily think that the Colts are going to go and do anything externally, but I could definitely see if some things don't go well, I could see the Colts considering adding a player like Jalen Farmer, the 4th-round pick from this year, into the mix potentially at right guard, and potentially see him get some snaps, especially if things are really not going well in camp. So, a player like Matt Gonsalves has to have a strong camp this year. Not that I think he's going to. I think the position is very much his right now to lose. But if he does start losing a grip on that, does Jalen Farmer get some reps at some point this year, right? And how does that change the way the Colts view Matt Gonsalves long-term if he doesn't show considerable improvement from last year? Not that he was bad last year at all, but you definitely saw him have some struggles on the field. I know he was dealing with some off the field personal things, but yeah, he really has to have a big, strong year. And then, of course, with the new right tackle, Jalen Travis, he also has to have a nice year here, stepping in for Braden Smith, who had been here for a long time, had provided some really quality snaps at right tackle. And for the little sample size we saw of Jalen Travis, it was definitely some good stuff. But he has to come out now and not just fill in, but be that full-time guy at right tackle. So it's going to be intriguing because I think there's a couple different ways this offensive line could look. I mean, the obvious way is Gonsalves at right guard, Travis at right tackle. But if Gonsalves starts struggling, could Jalen Farmer get some looks there? Or if Jalen Travis starts struggling, we've seen Matt Gonsalves have reps at right tackle his rookie year. So is he a guy that steps over there if it's really bad? So I could see it kind of going a couple different ways there. But all that being said, just for the sake of the Colts offense, this right side of the offensive line's got to figure it out this year, and they've got to emerge. A couple guys got to emerge here, however that looks, and provide some quality protection for Daniel Jones, but also, like we saw at the end of last year, they've got to be able to contribute in the run game consistently, right? This Colts offense went from almost like 100 to 0 very quickly when it came to running the football. Of course, there was other factors outside of just the offensive line play that were out of their control, but all that to say, the Colts have made a big emphasis, and they've talked about it, about we need to be able to run the football how we want to run the football, when we want to run the football. And so this offensive line on that right side especially, they've got to be able to provide that for this Colts offense. They got to be able to open up those lanes for Jonathan Miller or whoever's running the football, as well as protect Daniel Jones coming off that injury he suffered last year. So this offensive line on that right side, it's the least established group on this offensive line. The left side, it's been established for the last number of years, but there's a lot of transition on that right side of that offensive line over the last couple of years. So they've definitely got to step it up here. And Matt Gonsalves' second year as a full-time starter, and then Jalen Travis stepping in at right tackle for his first career year here as a full-time starter. So, yeah, this right side of that offensive line, all that to say, you need them to step up. All right, couple positions here on the defense that I want to highlight. And I thought about saying edge outside a lot too, similar to how I talked about running back. But I do think also with Latu, he definitely has to step up as well. So I threw him into the bunch here and really just said the edge position. I mean, to me, this is the biggest wild card and potentially the biggest hindrance on your team, because Latu, yes, we know from his rookie year to his second year, he definitely showed a lot of good things, a lot of improvement, makes you feel confident that he's going to take that next step. But we're not going to know if he's going to do that until he goes out and proves it, right? Is he going to go from 8.5 sacks to over double-digit sacks? Is he going to go from top 15 in pressures to top 10, potentially top 5 in pressures? There's a lot of question marks with Latu. Can he do that? I think we feel confident if the trend continues from where it was last year, he's going to take that next step into becoming not just a good edge rusher, but potentially bordering on an elite edge rusher this year, which would definitely be massive for you because you have not had anywhere near that for a long time, probably since Robert Mathis led the NFL in sacks back in 2013, right? You've had some solid pass rushers. You've never had a pass rusher of Latu's caliber in quite some time, especially if he takes that next step. And also, of course, outside of Latu, taking that aside, even if he does have a great year this year, what does the edge position even look like outside of him? Right now, you have Arden Key, who you signed in free agency, who has a career-high 6.5 sacks. And Jalen Tuimuluau, former second-round pick, is another guy that's probably going to factor in as well. And there's a couple other guys, maybe Adetomiwa Adebaware on some pass down situations potentially. Where in the world does Michael Clemens factor into this? There's a lot of question marks. And, of course, you have some rookies here, and do they factor in at all? Caden Curry, George Gums, did they do anything? So there's a lot of question marks on this position group, and from the top down, really, on are the Colts going to be able to have enough here in this room to be able to provide consistent pressure on the quarterback to be able to help your defense in those crunch moments? Last year, it wasn't enough. I mean, we saw it. Outside of Latu, this edge position was bad. It was bad last year. I mean, Kwity Paye and Samson Ebukam and everybody else who really got snaps outside a lot too really weren't that great last year at getting after the quarterback. Now they're all gone. And so there's an opportunity here for some of these younger guys to get opportunities, but is it going to be enough? Is it going to be enough? They need to come out and prove a lot of naysayers wrong. And I'll admit it, I'm kind of one of those people that I don't 100% trust this edge position. It's definitely a position group that makes me a little bit nervous. So it's up to them. If they can come out and they can provide some consistent pressure, you can see some guys like Jalen Tuimuluau, Arden Key, some of these other players as well, really come out and get after the quarterback early and often, then okay, it starts to quell a little bit of the fears or the frustrations that fans and media are kind of have with how the Colts have approached this edge position this year. So it's up to them. Do they have some strong camps here? Do they prove some people wrong here that say the Colts don't have enough at edge? Do they do that? It's up to some of these players to step up and prove the Colts right on doubling down on them. So all that to say, edge is definitely a big question mark. So they need to have some strong camps from everybody on this edge group. Now, the final position group that I have here, it's more of a general position group. It's really the defensive back room in general, because from the top down, there's question marks, right? You have Sauce Gardner, who you traded for him, a young all-pro type of guy, only 24 years old, but can he stay healthy? He struggled with injuries last year. Can he stay healthy? And is he going to live up to the billing that you traded for? Is he going to be a top 5 corner this year with Indianapolis? That's definitely a question mark. He has to come out and prove the Colts right there. Of course, you have Charvarius Ward with all the injuries he suffered last year, with the concussions on concussions on concussions that he suffered last year. I think just for his confidence, he needs to come out and have a strong camp, and obviously has to stay healthy as well. You have a new starter in Justin Wally, presumably, at that slot corner position. And then outside of those guys, there's also some other corners that you're interested in. Of course, a guy like Cam Taylor-Britt, who is coming off a bad year with Cincinnati, but when he played under Lou Anarumo, he had some of his best years as a pro. So he's only 26 years old. What does he look like as presumably a backup corner here for you? You have a couple other guys in that corner room that you're kind of interested in as well. And then, of course, that secondary in the safety room that you're really fascinated with as well. We already know Cam Bynum's going to be your free safety. I mean, he's a really good player for you, really good free agent signing last year for the Colts. But outside of him, there's a lot of question marks. I mean, at that strong safety position, how does that pan out? Is it third-round pick A.J. Halsey? Is he going to be a guy that's going to start from day one? Is going to contribute from day one for your team? What is he going to do? And how are the other safeties going to factor in as well? You went out and signed a ton of safeties in free agency. You went out and got so many guys like Wanye Thomas, Jonathan Owens, and so many other players that you added into this room. From a depth standpoint, you have some great depth, I think. Probably the best depth you've had in quite some time. You have a guy like Hunter Wooler coming back. Daniel Scott's still in that room. So there's a lot of interesting players in this secondary, but how does it pan out from a health standpoint, and also some guys who are stepping into some new roles this year? What do they look like? And do the Colts miss a beat with these guys, or do they kind of make it more of a seamless transition this year? There's going to be at least 2 new starters this year for this Colts secondary, but who is the new starters? That remains to be seen at this point. So I'm very intrigued from the starting guys to also the depth guys as well. But yeah, it's going to be quite interesting here for the Indianapolis Colts. Heading into camp here, guys, under 2 weeks. Really excited about it. Hope you guys are as well, and I will have you covered for training camp, so definitely don't miss that, guys. If you haven't already, be sure to smash that like button. Be sure to hit subscribe. Be sure to turn on that notification bell, as we are just getting into the Colts season, which is super exciting, and you guys definitely want to follow along with what we're doing over here at Sleeper Colts. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts on some of these position groups that need to have strong camps for the Colts. That'll do it for this one, guys. Thanks so much. And as always, have a good one.